Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Not Funny Guys Presents Red Dwarf Rewatch. I am your host, Dr. John, and we are grooving right along with what I think to me was a very unexpectedly, pleasurably fun video. I am speaking, of course, here we are at Series 11. We are about the halfway point. Episode 3, Give and Take, directed and written by Doug Naylor. This was released on the 6th of October, 2016. So let's get into it. So we open on, of course, Red Dwarf in orbit, and Rimmer is in the hallways appearing to track something down, and he is forced to wait at a lift, which we have seen just close. He's yelling at the lift's, basically AI, needing to speed it up, he's trying to track some life forms. The lift apologizes for the issues, not wanting to lose a customer to the stairs, which are apparently doing very well. It sort of devolves into an argument, and that's kind of where it dead ends, with like Rimmer making threats about, replacing it and putting it in a terrible place. And then we apparently see a space station, and Lister comes to Rimmer's bunk, and we've seemingly dropped this storyline, but we actually haven't. This is one of the things that makes this episode kind of brilliant. Lister's in the bunk. He has been hung over for 2 days. And he tells him, he slaps his face, gets up, and off they go. They're on Starbug. They're arguing with Crichton, who apparently has cleared out his memory. So he doesn't know what this station is. And he goes in there to clear up space. And apparently he dumped all his frivolous and idiotic things in his memory. And as of course, he has forgotten who Rimmer is. Which he demands to be reinstated, and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. They're on the station. They have a limited time because there's like an asteroid storm heading for this, and so the station's a bit unstable. They really only have about 5 hours. They split up, and of course, when they split up to search for tech in pairs, Rimmer is forced to take Crichton because after looking at both Lister and Cat, he's like, no, all right, goes back to his second choice. Of course, Cat and Lister go off, Rimmer and Crichton go off, and of course, Rimmer and Crichton stumble upon what looks like to be a medical center, and the name of the station is Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine. We'll come to find out there's a little bit more going on here. Cat and Lister find this dead body. They scan it. It's somebody who died at age 31, stabbed in the back. The DNA in the knife is the same as the skeleton. And they find these notes in files and pick them up. Through Crichton, we learn that Asclepius is also the name of a Metabot droid from the 23rd century, who's supposed to be a wizard at, basically performing medical surgeries. They do find a droid that looks weirdly like a cross between Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet and the robot from Lost in Space. They turn the droid on. It was voiced by Mark Quarterly. They mistake this for Asclepius. Asclepius, as who we think he is at this point, says he once served a crewmate, Ronald Littlewood from Red Dwarf, or at least someone who associated previously with Rimmer. The quakes are increasing. They invite Asclepius to join them. As they walk away, and the droid follows them, it's not Asclepius. What you read on the back says Snacky, the automated snack dispenser. Just so on point. Now, this is where the episode starts getting good, but it's even going to get better. So Cat and Lister are flipping through the notes of the dead skeleton. He was a stasis engineer. And as they're talking, what looks to be like something out of a horror movie appears to be approaching them. This is Asclepius. He's gone mad and psycho, voiced by J. Oliver Mason. He even has a note claiming he's not insane that's written in blood. He points to it. He then darts and incapacitates Cat and Lister. He has them on operating bed, and he's singing "Row, row, row your boat" like HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is just horrific. It's this giving this very horror movie aesthetic, including the little plastic things you walk through. Of course, Lister and Rimmer Crichton and Rimmer are on the run. They find them, they track them down. You see them enter the area, and then they open fire on bazookoids. They then accidentally destroy a jar containing what would be some sort of organs. They push the beds with Cat and Lister out to escape, while Asclepius comes back online and follows them, but they barely escape and return to Red Dwarf. Now, Lister wakes up in the medibay. Thinks he got drunk again. This takes us all the way back to the beginning. They didn't tell him Cat's in another bay. Cat is fine, but there's something wrong with Lister. Apparently, Asclepius removed his kidneys. And those were the things that were in the jar that got destroyed in the fire, supposedly by Rimmer. So Crichton apparently gave him an MTK chip that basically can temporarily perform the same function of the kidneys of like dialysis, but it's a limited time. So they've got a plan. They still think that real name Snacky is the Metabot. It's a really bad joke. They think he can help them save him. Apparently the plan is to take one of Cat's kidneys and modify the DNA, which supposedly Asclepius could do, to then save his life. Snacky tries to come clean to them when he comes in, and Crichton just talks right past it, like false modesty. And what they want to do is of course, they got to get the cat to donate the kidney. And Lister knows this is not going to happen because they need the kidney to rewrite the DNA and all that stuff. But Cat's not going to donate. Lister knows this. This is, of course, on top of the fact that they don't actually have the real Asclepius. So Cat finally comes to see Lister, and he plans, and of course, this is when Lister plans to try and ask about the kidney. Lister claims his, basically points out his selfishness to him after a sort of botched conversation where he steals his food, and Cat leaves upset but taking the tray of Lister's food. Rimmer comes, of course, then to talk to Snacky and wants to know about his information, about his psychiatric skills, which is hilarious because we know that Rimmer's got all sorts of problems. So the fact that he's actually getting therapy is kind of amazing. Rimmer then, before, shall we say, Snacky just sits down, and we see this montage of him going over his life traumas about how his father wasn't his real father, his mother was his real mother, his brothers, and all these things. And Snacky says nothing about this trauma dump, and then because he says nothing, Rimmer then assumes that this means you want me to find the hero in myself, and literally psychs himself out. All while we see on the back of Snacky after he has a ding, and Rimmer, oh, time session's up. No, he's low on pretzels. Yeah. Lister wants to enlist Crichton's help to lie and help him out. He says he's very practiced at it, so good that he could work for FIFA. If you don't know what FIFA is, it's the International Football Federation that is super corrupt. So that makes sense. Crichton then goes to Cat using his lying mode, which he stutters through, but Cat doesn't notice. He tells the Cat that he mixed up the results, and it's Cat who actually needs the kidney. So is still lying very bad, but like the Cat he goes to Lister and convinces him that he'll give him the kidney. He thinks he's playing. It's like a huge game of like who's deceiving who. But Lister gets him to sign the paperwork after he's being super nice, and the Cat offers to weirdly tuck him in. So the Cat pretends to, like I said, offer him the kidney, but he's being super generous. But then they get him to sign the consent form that he didn't read. And then they're doing this whole pantomime when Crichton comes in, but Crichton finally comes clean, and then they knock the Cat out to prep him for the surgery. They call on Asclepius, really Snacky, to write the DNA, and he finally directs him to the name on his back, and they finally learn the painful truth. So they can't do the surgery. Non-compatible, as Crichton says, it's like the Catholic Church in science or VHS and Betamax. Snacky tells them what actually happened to that skeleton they found, apparently, and it was apparently part of a whole time travel befuddlement. But he was the Stasis engineer trying to figure out a way to use it to time travel, past self warning him, all that stuff. And then they refer back to the very beginning of the episode when we found Lister blackout drunk. And so what they've actually found themselves is in a bit of a paradox loop. He had suffered a 2-day hangover, even though he only remembered having 2 drinks. So this has actually already happened. Now, this is where the episode gets actually pretty brilliant. They reconfigure the stasis boot, but they have to do that to make it work. And Snacky keeps trying to argue that he's just a snack dispenser until they actually, through Rimmer's help, convince him he's a genius when they start reading off the terms, and he does know these things from the file. And so they take the information, and Snacky manages to upgrade himself to a stasis booth engineer when he rewires it. They get in, they have to hurry, the MTK chip is failing. They get back in time, they chloroform, they stumble upon Lister himself as he starts to drink, chloroform him, take him to the med bay, steal his kidneys, put the MTK chip in him, get on the lift, and narrowly avoid Rimmer, which is right back at the beginning of the episode again. Rimmer is on the lift, telling the lift to lie to his other self and arguing and basically degrading him past self as being stupid. They put the pass lister back in his bunk, duck out, and return to the future. Brilliant episode. But the best part comes at the end, because when future Rimmer was in the lift, he promised the lift like an upgrade. Rimmer goes to the lift, of course. Now in the future, he's been bribed, moves to says, "Why have I been moved to shaft 6," which is apparently like the dumps. He gets no promotion. The lift is fed up, and apparently Snacky helped him install a speed of light drive, and he's waiting for Rimmer to do it. And Rimmer all of a sudden panics as it engages. Scene. So this episode starts out kind of simple, stupid, but then turns into a brilliant little episode on time travel and psychotic robots. But next time we'll be getting to Officer Rimmer. But before we move on, just a little bit more, I actually did think going in this episode, I thought this was going to be kind of like a silly filler episode. No, once again, it turns out to be absolutely hilariously brilliant in its own little way. So, like I said previously, Doug Naylor's a genius. And if I haven't said it previously, I'm saying it now. Please like, subscribe, comment on the channel, share it. If you know any boys from the Dwarf you want to share that with, you can also write us. I would love to hear your thoughts. As I said previously, I'm planning on digging in, maybe doing some series reviews where we sort of rank episodes. If that's something that sounds appealing, if you want me to do those things, tell me. You can write me in the socials. You can contact me on social media. You can write me at notfunnyguys.offthereels@gmail.com. Link in below and in the ticker. You can check in. We will, like I said, I want to stay with Red Dwarf as long as possible. We may mix it up, but we will be moving on eventually to news radio. Or as I say it, the only time both Andy Dick and Joe Rogan were last time they were both funny. And unfortunately, we will tragically lose Phil Hartman, but he was, in my mind, a truly masterful comedian in that show. So, like I said, please like, subscribe, share, write me, tell me what you want to hear, what you'd like to see. I'm very open to suggestions. I'm into it. Okay. Just don't ask me for a safe word. I'm not in that far into it. But in the meantime, if you'd like to check out some of our other not funny products, as I like to call them, products, you can check out our main podcast, Not Funny Guys Presents Off the Reels, where we talk about movies. We are wrapping up at the moment a run of what were you like in the 90s, in a sense, accidentally stumbling upon that trend. We're looking at 1994. We have gone over and looked at the Shadow, trying to be hard to be Batman. Stargate was brilliant. And then next week, we'll be looking at The Crow. And then we'll be moving on to all the with a few exceptions, we are adding in some things. We're going to be looking at all the live action Batman standalone films. We had a whole debate about this, about Batman and I said, we're only doing those. We're not doing the animated films. We're not doing films where he appears as part of a team. So no Justice League, no Batman v Superman stuff. If we're going to do Snyderverse stuff, we're going to have a whole nother problem. Don't even get me started. If that's not your cup of tea, you can check out my Not Funny colleagues, Casey and Eric, who I do the main podcast with. They've got their own podcast, Not Funny Guys Presents Wrestling with the Horror of It All, where they get into wrestling and horror movies, mainly WWE. And then we have another podcast with myself and a Not Funny gal, Dr. Kristen, where we talk about academics, AI, culture, and all that stuff. Not Funny Guys Presents Thinking About Thinking. And because of recent events that have been going on, we're actually working towards an episode. We'll probably have it out next week, talking about anti-Semitism. We're going to do a two-parter because I was raised Christian. Dr. Kristen is Jewish. And with all the things going on in the world, we're going to try and see what we can do to tackle the issue a little bit, or at least put in some thoughts and thinking about what's really going on when we talk about anti-Semitism, because it has unfortunately become a catch-all for all kinds of nonsense as well. What really is it? Okay. That's what we're seeking to explore. But until then, remember, don't be a smeghead. Keep it not funny. And I'll see you next time.